I'm sitting in a small room in Phnom Penh right now. A single fan on the ceiling, a mattress that cost me $12. And outside this window, the street vendors are already starting up, pots clanking, motorbikes revving, and I'm lying here at 6 in the morning, staring at the ceiling, thinking about £365,000. £365,000. That's what I had. That's what Thailand took. That's what she took. And the worst part, the part that keeps me awake, the part that chews through me every single night, is that I handed it to her, every penny. I handed it over with both hands and a smile. 12 years believing he was mine, believing we were building something real, believing I was one of the lucky ones. Thailand taught me something the hard way. There's no such thing as lucky when you're a foreigner in love, and there's only a matter of time. I was 51 years old when I landed in Bangkok for the last time as a free man. I'd spent 23 years in IT project management in Coventry, long hours, office politics, until severance and a partial pension at 50. I had £365,000 in savings and investments, earning roughly £1,800 a month in returns on top of the pension, just over £2,400 a month combined. In Thailand, that was a king's income. I'd been unhappy in England for a long time. My marriage to Carol had ended 8 years before I moved. We had 2 kids, James and Rachel, but we drifted into something that barely resembled a marriage. She left for a man she'd met at her yoga class. I signed the papers on a wet Tuesday in November and drove home to an empty flat and ordered a curry I didn't eat. That was the wound, and the loneliness that followed was the infection. A friend of mine, a bloke called Stuart, had moved to Pattaya in 2010. He kept telling me, "Gerald, you can live like an absolute king out here for pennies. Get out of England, mate." I came out to visit him in the spring of 2012 and understood what he meant within 48 hours of landing. The air hit me like walking into a warm bath. The food was extraordinary. People smiled at me, genuinely, constantly. I felt seen in a way I hadn't felt in England in years. By January 2014, I'd handed back the keys to my flat, said goodbye to the kids, and was on a one-way flight to Bangkok. I landed with £365,000 and the very dangerous belief that the hard part of my life was behind me. The first months in Pattaya were everything I'd hoped for. I rented a condo on Pratamnak Hill for 14,000 baht a month, just over £300. I was spending maybe £900 total each month, living comfortably, eating out every day, walking the beach in the mornings. If I'd kept it that simple, I'd still have money in the bank right now, but I was lonely in a different way than I'd expected. There's a particular hollowness to drinking with strangers every evening and calling it a social life. I wanted something that felt like home. I wanted someone. Then I met Ploy, a Tuesday night in August 2014. Stuart had dragged me to a place on Walking Street. Ploy was working there. She was 26, from Surin province, sitting quietly at the end of the bar looking at her phone, almost bored, which somehow made her more real to me than anyone else in the room. When I sat near her and we started talking, badly, slowly, with her broken English and my non-existent Thai, she laughed at my attempts, and it was genuine, not a performance. Within an hour she'd told me about her rice-farming family, her sick father, her son back in Surin being raised by her mother. "Thai man," she said, shaking her head. "No good." I felt the rescue instinct pull at me. When she asked if I could help with back rent she owed, I gave her 6,000 baht without blinking, about 140 pounds. I didn't see the test for what it was. I failed it, and she learned everything she needed to know about me in that single moment. Over the next 3 months, we became inseparable. I paid her bar fine so she could stop working, 12,000 baht a month as an allowance. She moved into my condo by October 2014, and I was happier than I'd been in years. She cooked for me, she laughed at my terrible jokes, she held my hand in the street. I introduced her to Stuart and his wife Dao, and I noticed later that Dao barely spoke to Ploy at dinner. I thought nothing of it. By early 2015, the conversation about marriage had started. From her mother, via calls I couldn't understand, with Ploy translating. I was in love, or what I believed was love, which at 52 feels a lot like relief. I proposed in March 2015. She cried. I cried a little. Then came sinsot, the Thai bride price. Her family wanted 400,000 baht, roughly 8,500 pounds. We settled on 250,000 baht, about 5,300 pounds. I told myself it was cultural. What I was actually doing was paying for a fiction I hadn't yet been shown. We married in May 2015 in Surin, in her home village. A traditional Thai ceremony with monks chanting and flower garlands, and far more of her relatives than I'd expected. I paid for everything, which came to another 180,000 baht. By the time we were officially married, I was already close to 12,000 pounds down from my savings on top of living expenses. I had roughly 350,000 pounds remaining. I thought the spending was behind us. I was catastrophically wrong. This was just the prologue. Married life in Pattaya in 2015 and 2016 had a surface of contentment underneath which everything was slowly tilting. We'd moved to a larger condo. Her family in Surin required a regular contribution. Total monthly outgoings were around 75,000 baht, roughly 1,600 pounds. My income was 2,400 pounds. Then the requests began. First, a new phone, 200 pounds. Then her brother's motorbike, 45,000 baht. He, my family, Gerald, the same as your family. Her mother's clinic procedure, 60,000 baht. I transferred it within an hour because she'd been crying, and I couldn't bear to see her cry. These incidents followed a rhythm I didn't recognize as a pattern. Always urgent, always specific, always just enough that saying no felt cruel. Looking back, the amounts were calibrated. Around mid-2016, I started noticing that Ploy had changed. She'd leave the room to take calls. She started going to her village more often, every 6 or 8 weeks, sometimes longer. I always said yes. She seemed lighter when she came back, more relaxed, and then gradually she'd pull away again, quieter, more distracted. I told myself everything except the truth. In early 2017, Ploy started talking about a house near her parents in Surin. And her energy when she talked about it was electric. She hadn't been this alive around me in months. The cost? Around 2.8 million baht, approximately 60,000 pounds. I felt my stomach tighten. In Thailand, foreigners cannot own land. The title deed would be in her name entirely. I'd have zero legal claim if anything went wrong. I'd read accounts of men in exactly this situation losing everything. I'd thought those men had been naive. I was about to become one of those stories. Ploy addressed my concerns fluently. She'd rehearsed for them. "We married," she said, Same, own it together. You think I run away. I love you, Gerald. Why you no trust me? She cried. Not performed crying. Real crying. Or what looked real to me. I justified it the way only a man in love can justify something insane. The land cost less than a year's rent on a London flat. I was different from those other men. We were different. Construction began in April 2017. The 2.8 million baht estimate became 3.4 million baht by completion. Her family's contractor cousin found better materials and foundation issues that required extra work. I visited once and stood smiling at a half-built structure I didn't own, surrounded by her relatives who smiled back at me with expressions I now understand meant something entirely different. By late 2017, I'd spent approximately £72,000 on it. My savings were now around £265,000. The business idea came in 2018. A small guest house in Hua Hin, 6 rooms. Ploy had done research. With proper management, 80,000 to 100,000 Baht monthly profit. And I would finance the lease and renovation, roughly £40,000. Her name on everything, because I couldn't legally own a majority of a Thai business. I was contributing 100% of the capital for 49% of a business I couldn't control. I knew this. I still agreed. I was 55 years old and too proud to admit I might have been wrong about everything. The guest house opened in January 2019. Within 3 months, it was losing money. Ploy blamed low season, then a competitor, then a bad review. Every month there was a request for operational funds. Whenever I asked to look at the books, she reacted as though I'd accused her of something, tears forming instantly. "You think I steal from you," she would say, and I would backpedal. By the end of 2019, I'd poured another £35,000 into the guest house. It had never generated the promised income, not once. And she'd also taken out a loan in both our names, 300,000 baht, using our condo as collateral, using a power of attorney I'd signed for a completely different purpose. When I found out, we had our worst argument. She went to her village for 2 weeks, came back crying. I forgave her because I always forgave her, because the alternative, accepting I'd been systematically deceived for 5 years, was something I wasn't yet ready to survive. In February 2020, Ploy told me she was pregnant. I was 57 years old, and the first emotion I felt was joy. Uncomplicated, stupid joy. We talked about names. I called James and Rachel, and they were cautiously supportive. Our son was born in November 2020. They named him Krit, and he was small and dark-haired, and he screamed beautifully, and I held him in the hospital room and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Purpose. I was a father again. Then COVID arrived and wrecked everything else, and somehow, impossibly, that disaster became the thing that finally cracked the truth open. The pandemic shut the guest house by April 2020. Ploy was in Surin with newborn Krit, saying travel wasn't safe. I was alone for 8 months, watching Krit grow through a phone screen. Krit's complexion was noticeably darker than Ploy's. She'd explained this as Thai genetics from my grandfather's side. But during a video call in late 2020, I noticed a man in the background, just briefly, moving across a doorway. She said it was her brother. I knew her brother. That man's walk, his build. It wasn't her brother. I said nothing. I started sleeping very badly. By early 2021, I had made a decision I'd been circling for 3 months. I ordered a DNA test kit and had it sent to Surin under the pretense of vitamins for Crit. When Ploy sent me a saliva swab she thought was for a health supplement registration I'd invented, I had what I needed. The results arrived by email on a Wednesday morning in April. I read the result line 4 times. Probability of paternity, 0.00%. Excluded as biological father. I put the phone down on the table. I sat very still for a long time. Crit, the boy I'd held in a hospital room and wept over, was not my son. I was 58 years old, alone in a foreign country, with a fraction of my original savings, and none of the things I'd believed were real. And I spent 2 days doing something I should have done 5 years earlier. I spoke to a lawyer, then called Stuart and told him everything. There was a long silence. Then he said quietly that he and Dow had suspected something for years. Dow had heard rumors about Ploy from other Thai women, that she'd kept contact with a man from Surin named Apirak who had visited her in Pattaya when I was away. Dow had wanted to tell me, but hadn't known how. People had known. The community around me had known. I was the last to understand. On the 3rd day, I called Ploy and asked her to come back to Pattaya. She arrived 4 days later. I was sitting at the kitchen table with the DNA result printout in front of me. She walked in with Crit on her hip, smiling, saying something about how long the journey was. She saw the paper. Her smile didn't disappear immediately. It sort of suspended, like a film paused on the wrong frame. I said very quietly, "Sit down, Juan." She put Crit on the floor with the toy. I slid the paper toward her. I said, "I want the truth. I want all of it, right now." She started with denial. "Where you get this? And that not right? Test is wrong." The denial lasted perhaps 3 minutes. Then her face changed. The mask, and it was a mask, I saw that clearly for the first time in 7 years, came down. She said, in a flat voice, "Apirak, he Crit's father." I asked how long. She said, "Since before we met." Apirak had been her real man in Surin all along. He came to Pattaya when I traveled. Guest house money had gone to him directly. Family emergency funds, too. I'd been clearing a stranger's debts while calling it love. And I asked her why she married me. She said, "You have money, you kind man. I need money for my family, for Apirak's debt. I give you wife, you give me money. This normal, Gerald. This, many Thai women do this." I asked if she'd ever loved me. She said, "Maybe first time, a little. But you old man, Gerald, Apirak young, I love Apirak." I didn't shout. I didn't throw anything. I felt my legs go completely hollow. She'd given me a transactional explanation for a decade of my life. I asked who else knew. She shrugged. "My family know. People in village know. Maybe people in Pattaya know. Only you know." She said Apirak was Crit's father, and they plan to raise him together now. She said this while Crit sat on my kitchen floor, pushing a toy car back and forth. And I looked at this little boy who I'd cried over in a delivery room and felt something break in me that I don't think has fully healed since. She left that same evening. Within 3 hours, she'd taken Crit, her belongings, the second set of kitchen knives for reasons I still don't understand, and was gone. I sat until midnight, then opened my laptop and calculated. The house in Surin, £72,000, legally hers, nothing I could recover. The guest house, £75,000 total. Sinsot and wedding costs, £12,500. Monthly allowances over 7 years, approximately £25,000. Family emergency payments, £18,000. The condo loan, roughly £5,000. Total direct losses, £207,500. Reduced investment returns, another £40,000. Savings top-ups, another £60,000 minimum. Total destruction, approximately £307,500. I had £57,500 remaining. I was 58 years old, with £57,500 to my name, and no home in England. I left Thailand in June 2021. The divorce was exchanged through a lawyer. She got everything, because everything was already in her name. I got nothing. I packed 2 bags, said goodbye to Stuart on the beach. He said he was sorry he hadn't found a way to tell me sooner. I told him it wouldn't have mattered. I wouldn't have listened. That's the thing about being the fool. You're always the last to know because you're the one most motivated not to know. I landed in Phnom Penh with £57,500 and an apartment at $280 a month. I do online English tutoring for about $900 a month. I live carefully, very carefully. I am 62 years old, and I live like a man of 30, just starting out with nothing. Except I don't have 30 years ahead of me. The retirement I spent 23 years building toward does not exist. What exists is this: a ceiling fan, a $12 mattress, and whatever is left after rent and food each month. If you're reading this, hear what I'm about to say. Not as warning signs on a checklist, not as abstract advice, but as the distilled ruin of 12 years of my life. Never put property in a Thai woman's name. Never. Not if you're married. Not if you've been together a decade. Not if she cries when you suggest it. The moment that title deed has her name on it, you own nothing. No court in Thailand will help you recover it. My house cost me £72,000. I will never see a single pound of that again. Rent instead. Always rent. It is always cheaper than losing a house. If the age gap is more than 20 years, be very honest with yourself about what she sees when she looks at you. I was 51, she was 26. I told myself it was love. It was a calculation. I was her foreign income. Every compliment, every smile, every time she held my hand, I was paying for all of it. Ask yourself, would she be with you if you had no money? If you cannot answer that honestly, you already know the answer. The family emergencies do not stop. They are not coincidences. They are a system. Her sick mother, her brother's motorbike, her cousin's school fees, her uncle's debt, arriving in rotation, carefully spaced, so each seems isolated rather than coordinated. They are coordinated. Say no to the first request. The first no sets the precedent that saves you from everything that follows. Do not invest in her business idea. You will contribute all the capital and have no real control. Her relatives will manage it. It will lose money. Every month there will be a shortfall that requires more of yours. The guest house cost me £75,000 in total and generated, across 2 years of operation, roughly zero profit. If you give her money for a business, assume it's a gift, not an investment. The red flags were everywhere. Phone calls made in another room. Trips to Surin always slightly longer than planned. The man in the background of a video call. Stuart's wife's silence at that first dinner. My own gut, which knew something was wrong 3 years before I admitted it. I ignored all of it because I had already invested too much to face the truth. That is sunk cost fallacy operating on your life instead of your money. And it is the most expensive cognitive error a human being can make. Thailand is not your country. You cannot own land. You cannot own a majority of a business. You have no legal standing that matches a Thai citizen's. Everything you build there, you build on foundations you do not control. Building your entire retirement on a foundation where you have no legal rights is not a life plan. It is a gamble you are guaranteed to eventually lose. Do not surrender your financial security for anyone. I had £365,000. I worked 23 years for that money. I spent it on a woman who told me, to my face, that it had been a transaction from the beginning. No relationship should cost you the security you spent your working life building. Love is real. I believe that. But love does not ask you to sign away legal protections. And love does not have an emergency every other month. Love does not hide its phone calls. If what you're experiencing costs you everything, it is not love. These lessons cost me £365,000 and 12 years. 12 years I cannot get back. I'm 62. My son James has a daughter now. I'm a grandfather, and I can barely afford to fly home to see her. That's the actual cost, not just the money, the life, the years, the grandfather I should have been able to be. I'm giving you all of it for free right now, in the hope that one person watches this and makes a different choice. If you're already in Thailand, already in love, already telling yourself you're different, hear this clearly. You are not different. I wasn't different. Every man in one of these stories thought he was different. The question isn't whether she loves you. The question is whether you can afford to be wrong, because if she loves you genuinely, she will understand you keeping your money protected. If she doesn't, you'll find out when you suggest it. And that reaction will tell you everything you need to know before it's too late. Don't do what I did. Don't build your life on land you don't own, with a woman you can't legally protect yourself from, in a country where you have no rights. Don't hand over your savings piece by piece to emergencies that never end. Don't be another one of these stories. Just don't do it. Please.